Well, of course, much of that is disputed about whether it happened.
Sure.
But leaving that aside,
Mm-hmm.
I think we have the question of conscience again. When we read those passages, I can remember reading the Torah out loud to Aaron, which is one of the titles of one of my books, yeah. And after one of these episodes, Moses coming down very upset, 3,000 Israelites were slain, and Aaron said, "That's a dictator God." He wasn't abiding by that. And I agree with him. So when I hear these stories, I mean, you know, they're beautiful and awful, and they have a present-day context, of course, yes. Israel, Palestine. You know, you have to read them with your conscience. And so you have to covenantally dispute it. Does that mean you can't read it? Well, parts of it, of course, are not relevant to me, or I don't read it, or I don't gain any spiritual insight from it. Mm. But maybe they should be read as a warning. This is why, as I think I said last time, the New Testament for me is Jesus to Auschwitz. So I don't want to get into the violence of the Older Testament, which is whatever, 2,000-3,000 years, and compress the Old Testament to whatever, 30 years or something. Yeah. And then say, well, let's contrast them. I was just in South Africa, and maybe we could say that the New Testament, which was a Christian system from their perspective, apartheid, maybe we could say Jesus to apartheid. Now, we could also go beyond that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what do we all do with this violence done in our name, or our religion's name, or Moses' name, or Jesus' name, or Joshua's name? Where does our conscience come in, and where do we say no? Now, we can't say no for them, but in looking at these stories, where do we say no now? That really is our challenge. So when we read about this destruction by God, or the destruction by the Israelites, or whatever, if we look at the present day situation in Israel-Palestine, one of the things that I've done is say no.
In what regard? Like cease, total cease, both sides, or from Israel's side?
No, I say as a Jew, no to the oppression of the Palestinian people.
Okay.
For that, I've been handed over. Now, what do people at Truett need to say no to? Or what do people in the church that you might have need to say no to? And what can you say no to and survive as a Christian pastor? If you say, like Dorothy Day, no to war, and they say, well, you'll suffer because of that. We would suffer, and you say, hey, that seems to be the message too. Probably in a mainstream church, not going to survive. So, are you being trained, you know, what are we being trained for? Now, we all survive in institutional setups, and I survive here, or have survived up to now. So we all make compromises, but when does the compromise become too much? Yeah, when rabbis tell me, I agree with you, but I can't speak out because I would be fired by the congregation, I ask, why did you become a rabbi? Or if a minister says, I'd like to say this, and I believe this, but it's not going over here. I'd be out. I say, why did you become a minister?
Perhaps just for the ability to at least lead them and guide them closer to.
Yeah, and that's yeah, I understand that, and you know, it makes sense. But then, how close can you get?
Sometimes it's baby steps,
and then how much is there? How much are we telling them, but they can't really understand? And you know, that's very patronizing. And how much are we preserving ourselves? Complicated, but the problem is we have these religions. This is the problem. Coming back to our first part of our discussion, that seem to demand more than we can deliver. So if I were up there preaching, and I have actually preached, both in synagogues, giving sermons, and in churches. Yeah. When you're speaking, what do you feel like? If you're compromising in your speech, right then and there, to appeal, to help, to serve, to protect. Because if, as a Christian minister, you don't want to be known as anti-American or, anti-Semitic, or a Jew doesn't want to be seen as a self-hating Jew. And all of these things typically that we're called upon to give ultimate loyalty to are at the center of the prophetic that haunts that loyalty. So maybe these weren't made to be religions. Maybe that's the problem. And this goes back to the covenant. The covenant becomes encapsulated in a religion, or in religions, but maybe